All right. Hey, Coach Singleton, really do appreciate you taking the time today. It's been a while, kind of coming full circle after, our first interview. And now here we are. Oh, my gosh, we're a month away, right?
Yeah, very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah. I'm sure you can't wait to get started and back to the routine. So, hey, when do you report? What are the dates for when do you start training?
Our guys come in on the 17th of August, and the first practice is the 19th of August. So we're a little bit less than a month away now.
Yeah. I'm still debating where I'm going to go to school, but I can report on those days. So I'm good to go. Not sure my fitness is going to be at the level, but, my heart's there. Could you just, tell me about your first day of training. What does that look like? What do you do? Are you one of those fitness junkies, or you just try to get into, hey, this is how we're going to play, or you just want to see them play?
I think it's two purposes to the first day. One is I'm not a fitness junkie, but I'm a competitiveness junkie, so everything we do is competitive. And two is it's things that people are really familiar with, particularly with the new guys coming in. It's stuff they've done a million times over, so they won't be thinking of themselves as first years after the end of the day. But we do have a fitness test that we start out with, and we use the beep test for that. And so the guys will start out with that and have a minimum standard they have to reach. Then after that, the goalkeepers do goalie wars, and the field players have a 1v1 World Cup tournament in which we find an ultimate winner in the 1v1s. Then we take a break during the day, and then we're back on our game field in uniform at night with returning starters versus newbies, and probably a couple starters since we don't bring in 11 usually. And we'll play a full-sided game, and then throughout that game we'll switch people up on teams and different combos of player. But once they get through that game and they're in uniform and they're on the game field and they're kind of seeing the speed of play and sort of the style that our guys are doing and what the returners are doing communication-wise and all those details, it really does grow up the first years pretty fast, and it kind of makes them feel a lot more comfortable that, hey, this is still soccer. I'm just on a different field.
Yeah. I would think that game at night is probably really a great thing for them. Like,
they get really
hey, we're just throwing you in it. Yeah.
They get
really advanced.
Yeah. And that's why we put them in uniforms too, just to add that little bit of element to it and do it at night.
Yeah.
To add that little bit of excitement, and they get really sort of psyched up and enthusiastic, and it's good to see it. It's always like a very intense game with the two teams like really going at each other, and really like the way we pose it to the players is, if you want to be an impact player this year, the first days you have 3 different statements you can make. If you come in each one you say, I'm here for real, you've just done yourself a great service, and you're going to definitely move up in the depth chart and be positioning yourself to where you want to be.
So I got to ask the expectations questions. Now that you're this close to the season, what are you looking at for 2022? What are you expecting from your guys? You had a great run in 2021, so I got to believe your bar is set pretty high, right?
Right. I've been talking to a lot of the guys the past month and sort of getting a feeling from them where they are, and they're looking at it. They want to have a better season than last year. That's their goal. Hopefully we can play for another 36 hours than we did last year. And that's something that they keep on saying. So guys know that, we had a good year, but they also feel like they could have done more. So right now in the summer season, the captains are communicating regularly, and we have mentors for all the first timers. So they're all communicating regularly, keeping people on sort of the focus for our team. And we have a document that covers all of our formation and every positional need and the specifics of each position. So they're getting really familiar with that and making sure when we come to preseason, it's not something we have to teach. It's something that they know like the back of their hands. So they can be ready for it. And the expectations are, as they always are, just to keep getting better. So we have a lot of talent returning, a lot of guys who are excited, and then some guys who, quite honestly, are a little bit bitter about how last year ended. So there's a little bit of piss and vinegar in some of the guys saying, we want to make sure that we handle things and don't let anything else affect us next year.
Yeah. I'm sure a chip on a shoulder in this case, is a good thing, right? Like, they got something to prove. I think that's sort of one of those elements that you do need to make it deep, right? And to go all the way is to have that almost like, we're not being stopped this year and we're going to prove it to everybody, right?
Right. And I think that's exactly true is, you need to have that hunger, desperation, and that belief. Whereas I think last year convinced all the guys that they belong there and they should compete for a title. But now they actually believe it, whereas last year they were kind of hoping for it.
Yeah. So speaking of incoming first-year classes, what does your class look like? Is there any sort of positional strength that you gain by this incoming class?
We're bringing in 7 players. Really happy with the class overall. And what we were really targeting is certain positions to come in, but also just to increase our overall technical mastery. So some of the guys who are coming in are just really smooth on the ball and really skilled with both feet and really creative. And we think having more depth in that area will be an area that will help us right away.
Oh, that's interesting. You don't hear that very often. You usually hear running and gunning, right? Like, we need size, or and just knowing that you have a bunch of guys that are coming back from last year. What upperclassmen should we be looking for, or looking at, or looking to see their name up in lights? And probably even more importantly, who are those guys that, and for lack of a better word, like, need to step up in order to deliver?
Well, we look at, the 2 returning All-Americans in the middle of the park, Sam Bass and Michael Kutzenzarra. They're extremely fired up. They compete with each other just as much as they compete with other teams. So we think they're going to come in and really have their best seasons together. But then in the middle of the park with Tyler Smith and Grant McCarty and John Peterson and Carson Cooley, we have a lot of depth right in that midfield position that is kind of like the hub of our team, and we utilize those people for so much for our team. So I think that's going to be great. I think Waimi Agbaegbe, he's not a freshman anymore, so we're all happy about that. And he's hopefully going to sort of be a more consistent force, and he has a really high ceiling, so we're really trying to push him to become a constant go-to player. Charlie Colby, who's been sort of on outside back, is now moving into one of the inside defender positions because we lost our 2 starting center backs. So he's someone who in spring season stepped up and acted as if he had been there for 4 years, was directing everybody, doing exactly what we need. And Evan DePaula is probably primed to step into that role as well. And through spring season, they both did an incredible job stepping into those shoes. And we're excited to see them now own it and sort of make their defense in a way.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, I mean, you do have deep. You can run deep on your bench. Are you going to be looking to get guys in? Like, are you going to go as deep as you can go during games? Like, get as many guys playing time as you can, and then obviously it's all going to hone in once you get to conference tournament and big games and all that stuff. But
I'll be able to switch to starting lineups, and that's an intended goal of mine this year, is make some changes based on who we're playing and different strengths of our players. But we always have a similar theory of whoever we're playing, whatever their level, we're going to make sure that we play our best, manage the game. And if we have the game in hand, then I'll look to get more people in the depth-wise. But I never take for granted any any opponent, or if we're going into any game and think I'm going to play with, say, a weaker starting team, and then we're in a dogfight. I'm not trying to set us up for that.
You want to avoid those
Exactly.
at all costs. Those are the games that, like, sort of, in my experience, those are the games that you get bitten on, and then they alter your sort of trajectory of a season, and you can't get out of this funk because you screwed up in that one game. Right?
Now, the interesting thing about this season is our schedule. We don't have back-to-back games at all. So it's the first time I was able to schedule it that way. So I'm really excited about that because it will really allow us to really try to play our best in every game. And I think, around coaches this week at camps, they're like, well, aren't you worried that's not going to prep you for the NCAA tournament? And I just had to laugh. I'm like, well, the first 2 weekends of September is usually when you have back-to-back games, and I'm really not sure playing in early September has any purpose to late October and November. I'm like, they're not gaining experience that they're holding for 2 to 3 months of knowledge. Like, our teams look so different come the middle of November than they were the beginning of September. So it's a different beast. I'd rather focus on
different. It's almost like a different team, right?
Yeah.
From start of September to where you are in November, it's completely different team for a whole set of circumstances, right? Experience, fatigue, injuries, all those sort of things combine, and definitely. So speaking of your schedule, I mean, you open up with a little game against Messiah in a reprise of the quarterfinals of last year. What are your thoughts on that? Is that you're just jumping straight into the fire with that one, as far as I'm concerned?
Well, that's like, I always try to schedule us the best opponents that will play us. And Brad at Messiah and I have a good relationship. We both like playing on grass fields. So we had done a few years ago, we did a home and away against each other, and we're kicking it back up again. And I just look at it as, if we want to be understanding who we are, and by the end of the season, making sure we're playing our best and able to make a run, we have to identify who we are early, and we have to prove that we can play with the best. And I know Messiah is always going to be a high-quality team. So it allows us to really test ourselves, see what we have. And, I mean, we scheduled it before the quarterfinal match happened. So now it's just got a little bit more excitement for everybody. Now, the thing that's odd about that game is, so in last fall's game, his best midfielder had been hurt for the last part of the season, so he didn't play in the game.
Yeah.
Now, in this game, Michael Kutzenzarra has to sit the second game of the red card he got in the national semifinal. So he won't be able to play in the game.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Nope. I wish I was. I wish I was.
Oh, my gosh.
But,
oh, my gosh.
So other guys will have
to yeah. Some other guys will definitely. Yeah, there's no time to weep on that one. But what a shame, right? Because you want to go full strength to full strength, right? That's the ultimate test.
Right.
Yeah. And with the ODAC, what are your thoughts on the ODAC this year, the season, without getting yourself in trouble or giving other teams inspirational quotes? What do you think that's going to look like?
We know in ODAC there's always, I'll say, like 5 teams fighting for the top 5 spots, and then 8 teams fighting for the next 2, if you will. So it's and for us too, it's, we do have targets on our backs, so we know that when people play us, they're going to come really riled up. Our typical games that are the most difficult for us are Lynchburg, Roanoke. Hampton Sydney's getting stronger. Randolph-Macon's getting stronger. Val-Wes, Virginia Wesleyan always plays us tough. So we have a whole bunch of teams that we know are really coming at us when they play us and do a lot of preparation for us. But I think our conference it always comes down to the last game and 4 different placement spots for whoever, whether it be in the top 4 or the bottom bottom, of course. So we just know we got to get every point we can and make sure that we're looking at those games the way we need to. And that's kind of one of the things I talk to my guys about is it's almost like we have 2 seasons in a season. So when you look at getting into the NCAA tournament, there's winning your conference, which gives you the automatic bid, and then you're out of conference games, which can build your SOS and get you some wins versus ranked opponents. So we talk about the different mentalities and recognizing that, we're trying to give ourselves 2 chips of entry and give ourselves the most opportunity. So it's kind of a different talk we have with the guys during those times, because it really is something we want to maximize our opportunity to get in and get into the NCAA tourney.
I've spoken to a number of coaches. They say the same thing now. It's like, look, you need 2 tickets. You need to figure out a way to get 2 ways to get 1 ticket, right? Like, and that's you either got to win the conference tournament or strength of schedule, and those are the 2. And I think you start seeing teams trying to do that. Probably not on the lower end, right? But on the higher end of teams are very conscious of that.
But this year it's a little bit different, and it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts selection and placement, because there's going to be no overtime in regular season.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's
so the high number of ties. That's going to just.
Oh my gosh!
Mediocritize all. We're talking to the Tufts assistant coach yesterday, and he's like, "Wow, our record last year would have been 7-2-7 coming into the postseason." And I was like, "Yeah, that just feels different than 10-2-4, doesn't it?"
Yeah. Very true. That's a great point. Like, how do you? Yeah, and it's everybody is like that. Everybody has. I was joking with somebody a couple of weeks ago where I'm like, wow, you might be able to go like, 2-2-14, like that's how, you get into conference, especially the conference games, right? The out of conference, I tend to think again, anecdotally, I think there tends to be a winner in those games, but in conference, I mean, everybody's like lock down your defense and try to take advantage of the one opportunity, and that doesn't lend itself to high scoring games. There are obviously there's going to be cases, but in conference, I think can just totally blow
when teams
that
know
up.
each other so well, it's really hard to separate.
Yeah,
and it's just interesting because I just see it has. We have to talk to players differently and make sure they're understanding that they're not going to have another opportunity, and it's 2 points of the difference, and so it's significant, and it's going to take the guys in really the last 20, 15 minutes of the game to really have a different mentality. But I also see some teams will have a different mentality of, well, we don't have to go to overtime, so we just have to bunker better. That's where I'm like,
yeah. Instead of putting 10 guys behind the 18 or behind the midfield, let's put all 10 of them 10 yards from the 20, right? Like, let's just go deeper. We're good. Hey, that raises a question. I may have asked this. I can't remember. So, do you think are you going to be looking at your games in those situations, those last 15, 20 minutes differently? The players are going to have to, obviously, but are you, from a coaching perspective, are you going to be like, I don't want to say throw caution to the wind because you still have that downside of conceding, right? But are you going to be like, we need a goal. We can't afford to go into a tie. End in a tie.
My philosophy of coaching is I coach to win. So I don't coach to tie. And I'm not going to walk away from in any game play saying if we just get out of here with a tie, that's a win, because that's not what I preach to my guys. So they kind of know our sort of the way we look at the game and what we're trying to do. And so I know they're going to feel the same way. It's just everything we do in practice is competitive. There's a winner and a loser. If you tie, both teams are punished. Like, it's always that way. So they have a distaste, and they don't have any question of if we're in a game that I'm never going to play to preserve a tie. That's just not our style.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what are some games on the calendar that you have circled with a Sharpie, a bright red Sharpie, that are like, maybe it's not the biggest game, but you think that that's a critical game for you, whether it's your team's psychology or...
Well, I think that Messiah game can't be overlooked. That's a huge game.
Yeah.
Then I look at Emory and Oglethorpe are coming up to us, and those are always big in region games for us as well. Then CNU, we're at CNU, and that's always a huge battle game. And then if you throw Lynchburg and Roanoke in as with those teams, those are games that we know they're going to be excruciatingly difficult. We're going to have to really be playing our best.
Yeah.
And it's really going to take us sort of firing on all cylinders of what we hope to do in order to walk away on the good side of those games.
Yeah.
So, and we'll set goals. We'll talk as a team of, how many shutouts do we expect to have? What do we expect our record against those top teams to be? And the guys will talk about it and think what's reasonable. But I think if we manage those games well, the rest will take care of itself pretty well.
Place,
But if we don't manage those well, we're going to be fighting and clawing and scratching the whole way through the season.
I don't know if this is accurate, but the games that I watched, Lynchburg, I'm just because it's always so present in my mind, it strike me as like a Street Fighter type team. They come out brawling and they're ready to go and they're not backing down. And if you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them. But it's not, you're going to end up with your bruises and your, even a bloody nose occasionally. And I could totally see that one being
right.
Like that's a big test.
Our two teams know each other extremely well, and it's always a very tight game. And there's just a lot of when you look back at who's won the conference over the past 7 seasons, it's been either them or us. That's been it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pride in the programs, and it's always tough games and battles. Quite honestly.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're thinking like, you guys have their trophy. Like, how dare you steal their conference trophy? Like, that doesn't belong to you. Give it back, right? Hey, so what do you? Lastly, and I'll let you get on with your day. I know you're busy and doing cancer and whatnot, but what do you think? What do you see as your everything out there that you're going to be dealing with in the fall? Like, what do you think your biggest challenge or your biggest team challenge is? Is it? Or it doesn't sound like you're worried about guys being complacent, right? Like, but something along those lines. Like, what is that? The psychology of your team that has you thinking about? Like, we cannot allow ourselves to.
I think
fall into that trap.
We spent our spring season on working on team defense. And that was the one tactical foci that we worked on all spring season. Every single day we did first and second defender, 2 versus 2 defense. And we really talked about it a lot because I think last year, at times we leaked unnecessary goals. And that was something I thought we needed to improve on and tighten up. So that's going to be a big focus for us this year. Is I know we're going to score goals. We have a lot of attacking potential on our team. And we're going to get our share of goals, but we need to be better. And it's not just our back line, it's our midfield, our forward. It's the whole team defense needs to be more all the time. Whereas I think they took breaks at times in games last season. And so that's the number one thing we're focused on is making sure that we're as excited about good defense as we are as about good offense, if you will.
Good offense, yeah. I always say there's something about teams, really good teams, that when they're confident of their goal scoring abilities, generally their defense, I don't want to say is bad, but there's something mentally that they're like, oh, we'll be bailed out if we need be by the
Right.
guys up front, right? And I think that is a real issue. Like I said, for good teams, and I obviously would categorize you guys as a really good team. So, well, hey, Coach, I really do appreciate you taking the time today. It was really great catching up. Great to see
pleasure.
you in Virginia, and then great to see you today. And hope you get home here sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for catching up. I appreciate it. And keep on doing what you're doing. We applaud it. All right.
Thank you.